can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Flying, get on board. We're smiling on top of the world. Dangerous times, don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind. Flying, get on board. We're smiling on top of the world. Flying, get on board. We're smiling on top of the world.
I'm ready when you are, Dan.
We're good. We are live.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another FPVFC Town Hall. My name's Josh. We've got a full crew here, minus one. Hopefully, Blunty will be able to join us. Not sure on that, but we got Dan, Rob, and Alex, and of course, Dave. So I do have a couple of articles. One is a little bit of an update on the FAA reauthorization. So as well as some of the amendments, and some of those are interesting. So let me share my screen here as usual. Let's see if I can snag this. All right, so first up, it looks like RDQ is transitioning. So in a note, looks like on Facebook, Tyler Brennan, owner of Race Day Quads, posted that he is essentially stepping away to a certain degree from RDQ, and has looks like he is selling to Feinstein Partners, who is also the people who own Get FPV. Distracted with my Air Force career, other pursuits, and my desire to spend more time with my family. As this has happened, FPV and the businesses of FPV has changed a lot. As these changes have happened in the days since my last time flying a drone continue to count into the thousands, I felt more and more that instead of being the catalyst for RDQ's success, I have become the speed bump hampering its progress. And so I've decided that it is in the best interest of RDQ and the best interest of my family that I begin to transition away from the business I started nearly a decade ago. With this decision made, I began an extensive search and fielded multiple offers from multiple qualified players in the industry. Ultimately, amidst several offers, I was lucky to get to choose the team that I felt was most qualified and best suited to take RDQ into its next decade.
Or offered the most money. Who knows? I don't know.
We don't know that, but the team I've chosen is none other than Feinstein Partners. You may recognize this team as being the same team which Tim Nielsen, the owner of Get FPV and Luminaire, chose some years ago. While RDQ and Get FPV are and will remain very separate and distinct companies, each serving their own role in the FPV ecosystem, I know that the strengths of Get FPV are well matched to the weaknesses of RDQ, and the strengths of RDQ are well matched to the weaknesses of Get FPV. As I look at how the two will compete in the marketplace yet aid each other's struggles, I'm excited about Feinstein's ability to infuse capital and expertise that I simply don't have. The results of this will mean that over time, RDQ will expand its product catalog, carry more products in stock, team up with Get FPV for special promotions, and modernize RDQ's website, customer-facing, and back-end technological capabilities. In fact, this transition has already occurred, and I've already taken up an advisory role to the team at RDQ, which I will continue to maintain into the future. I want and every one of you to know that Melissa and I are so thankful for you all. What you all have done for our lives is something that neither of us could have ever imagined. With that said, I have one last favor to ask of each of you, and that is your trust. Trust that I have made the best decision I possibly could here for RDQ. Trust enough to continue to support RDQ's employees and what RDQ still stands for. I know for a fact that the best is yet to come for RDQ, and I simply ask that you all trust that will be so. With love and appreciation, Tyler.
I don't know if I'd
So,
say Get FPV's website's much better than Race Day Quad's website, but maybe that's just a personal opinion thing.
yeah, I mean, I know there's complaints for both, but at the same time, I mean, hopefully it'll be a good transition for them, and
Yeah,
you know,
I'd like to make a
yeah, go
couple
for it.
points. So having worked in mergers and acquisitions for 8 years, there's some significant points in Tyler's memo. One is that he states that both brands will continue to coexist. He also says he talks about both companies will, quote, compete in the marketplace. That's important from the perspective of if there were any Justice Department concern about this being too much of a market consolidation, continuing to have the two brands face each other as competitors, as well as offer the differentiation that they do now, are very positive messages to DOJ when you're talking about merging companies. The other thing is he is explicitly talking about that the back office will very likely merge, and so there'll be a lot of discussions there. So that's pretty clear. Also note that these are privately held companies, and there's no mention of the word there's no close date. And so he does talk about the transition has already happened, but transition is not a legal term. Close is. And so we should anticipate that they have not yet closed. It takes maybe they have. It takes months for all of the documents, all of the finance work, all that to be done in order to get to a close. A case in point is Rotor Riot and Fat Shark just announced the close that we've been hearing about for about a year. So yeah, I think it's positive, but are positive, and there's more to learn. And as I continue to be impressed with Tyler Brennan. I mean, the things that he's done and does them simultaneously, amazing. And to create and grow Race Day Quads to the size it is, and the reputation and great customer support. My hat's off to him, and I'm sure he did get a good price for it. So we don't sell as putting my flight test hat on. They don't resell our FT Easy ID after Tyler made some snarky remarks about remote ID. Maybe we have an opportunity to have RDQ resell the FT Easy ID broadcast module. So yeah, my congratulations to Fingston for this acquisition, and my congratulations to Race Day Quads, that team, as well as the Get FPV team that will be working together.
People were talking about how maybe Race Day Quads will carry TBS equipment again, since TBS was really not selling it mostly to Tyler, not the store, it sounds like.
Yep.
So maybe they'll have remote ID modules and stuff from TBS.
Excellent.
Or is that what's the differentiator between Get FPV and Race Day Quads?
It might be. Who knows? So, as I was reading this, it brought up a thought, and, just coming from a retail environment, I'm curious overall, and I mean, it's hard to ascertain, I think, to a certain degree, but what the retail aspect of FPV has done over the last, I don't know, 6 months to a year. And in terms of, the economy and people's discretionary spending and that kind of thing, if people in the industry have seen a reduction in sales and whatnot as well. So, it's a challenging environment out there for any retail industry, I'm sure, and I don't think FPV is immune to that. So it'll be interesting. All right. So next up, I have this from JD Supra. So on February 8th, the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation passed a bill that would fund the FAA for the next 5 years. This marks the first good progress on FAA reauthorization since the House of Representatives passed its own version last July. The Senate version of the bill was stalled in committee, held up by a series of disagreements among senators on issues affecting pilots, including training requirements and mandatory retirement age. When no progress was made by the end of last year, Congress was forced to pass a second short-term extension bill. So they go on to say, this alert provides a summary of key provisions in the proposed Senate bill related to uncrewed or unmanned aircraft system and advanced air mobility, including summaries of the amendments approved by the Senate committee last week. So there's a couple in here that I thought were interesting. So a lot of these are dealing with Next Gen Airspace Innovation Office. So a new Aerospace Innovation Office within the FAA is supposed to be established. Let's see, we've got ADS-B out equipage study. So directs the FAA to initiate a study to determine the number of aircraft registered in the United States and other devices operating in the airspace. Currently unequipped with ADS-B out requirements and impacts of expanding dual link architecture and the cost of benefits of ADS-B equipage. We've got, let's see, beyond visual line of sight, directs the FAA to launch and complete a rulemaking for a regulatory pathway to certify or approved unmanned aircraft systems enabling commercial BVLOS operations. Notes that rulemaking should establish a risk assessment methodology, develop a remote pilot certification standards, and determine airworthiness requirements. We've also got environmental review and noise certification. Requires the FAA to publish UAS-specific environmental review guidance and implementation procedures. Requires examination and integration of a programmatic level approaches to the National Environmental Policy Act requirements for the commercial UAS industry to enable an efficient process for environmental reviews. Let's see, we've got
UTM.
Yeah, exactly.
Requires a UTM.
So requires the FAA to create a standard approval process for third-party service suppliers of UTM. So UTM rears its head yet again. So we told you this wasn't over. It's definitely not over. And yeah,
So this isn't saying
And
they're
what-
requiring the FAA to create a UTM, but it's another step down that path of requiring people to use a UTM at some point in the future.
So the
And-
FAA, as we know, they don't create things. They don't run things. They tell other people. So this is an approval process similar to the trust, right? They didn't create it. They just had other people do it and operate it and run it. So we've got an extension of the Know Before You Fly campaign through 2028. Section 812 amends 44809 to allow recreational drone users to operate above 400 feet in certain areas and conditions subject to FAA approval. So that's a win.
Sounds like something from the AMA there.
Yep, I
turbine,
would-
turbine and sailplanes.
Yep, 100%.
That they got an exception for that type of flight, and so they were getting effectively a waiver for 44809. So that was a significant win for them in 2023. So this is
Yep.
fantastic to have this added in the statute.
Let's see. There's a bunch of little things in here. Let's see. Sense of Congress on FAA leadership. So this is expresses congressional sense that the U.S. should act to demonstrate its ability as a global leader in AAM, which is Advanced Air Mobility. This includes prioritizing aircraft type certification, publishing rulemakings for operational rules for pilot certification, and working with global partners to support acceptance of AAM. So,
And hiring Archer's executive to be the administrator of the FAA.
all right, we've got. Let's see. I think that was about it. We're continuing the Center of Excellence for Unmanned Aircraft Systems. Now we get to the amendments. So,
Embedded in this, of course, is any comments on the UTM have a prerequisite of network remote ID. So, as we've mentioned in the past, network remote ID is mentioned no fewer than 5 times as a mandate from Congress to the FAA. So, that's a big area that we will have to battle as that comes to pass.
Yep. So we've got full-on amendments prohibiting the FAA from providing federal funds to procuring from or operating with certain foreign drone companies. Requires
certain
the FAA
companies. What certain companies would those be? Do they have DJI in their initials?
Probably.
Yeah, covered list, and
Yeah.
we're nervous that this could be linked to the work that's coming out of the House with Congressional Representative Stefanik.
Yep. So we've got requires the FAA to replace any such drones that it owns or operates with a U.S. or allied drone within 1 year and provide a report to Congress with the cost and number of violating FAA drones. Does the FAA actually own drones? I'm curious on this.
Yes.
Do they?
They have their test centers, and their test centers probably own some.
Okay, fair. All
At least I would be surprised if their test centers didn't own any.
Fair.
But,
so countries include China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and other countries deemed necessary by the FAA administrator. All right, we've got...
Can they deem USA necessary?
We've got another amendment. Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, I don't know if any of y'all watched the pre-committee hearing that happened last Thursday. Singleton had some interesting things he was sharing. He was telling them that the security threats presented by Chinese aircraft, one of them he mentioned is that it could measure our heart rates. So there was some very interesting things being discussed in that. I can post the link later. It's on YouTube. So I'm wondering if they can measure my cholesterol too. I'm curious.
All right. So let's see. There was another one that was super interesting. I got to dig into it here. Let's see. Okay. Another amendment permits recreational drone operators to operate the drone at any altitude in uncontrolled airspace. So that's interesting. Let's see. Permits the operator to seek FAA authorization to operate in controlled airspace when operating under the safety programming of a recognized community-based organization. Allows the community-based organization to self-declare fixed sites.
I thought that was free as not fixed sites, but
yeah, we'll see what that shakes out to be.
Fixed sites is also nice.
And then permits a community-based organization to become FAA trust administrators. So if we want to go back down that route, Dan, we could do that.
It permits them. We weren't not permitted already.
Right. Well, you had to apply for it, right? So you had to apply to become a trust administrator, and you still do. But maybe it's just an automatic approval, and go through the process. Interesting.
Weird. I don't quite understand that one.
Yeah, I don't either.
Maybe it's just a poor summary of what it actually is.
Dave, are you dying over there? Okay, it's good, guys.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
I'm curious how we're gonna self-declare fixed sites. That could be interesting. So anyway, so this is some of the amendments here. Yeah. Thoughts? Dave?
Can I declare the U.S. as a fixed site?
Well, what does that get you? Like,
What is the
I don't need to get airspace approval every time I fly.
what was the summary status of this? So the bill has not been approved itself, right? Is this the Senate version has been now approved
Senate.
finally?
The Senate
Okay.
committee has passed a bill. It says Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation passed a bill that would fund the FAA for the next 5 years.
So we're still months away. And I mean, I
Possibly.
know that the next target is March 2024. We have to qualify the years now for the 2023 Reauthorization Act.
Yeah.
But there's a House bill that's been passed. Now the Senate's passed. Now they have to go to conference to reconcile the two bills.
So it says next step is for Senate bill is a full Senate floor vote, and then a negotiation between the House and Senate,
and then it can go to conference
because it's only passed the committee so far, not the full Senate, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, the target a couple months ago was March, and I think the FAA has a CR, a continuing resolution until March.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to do another one of those. But of course, the House is in recess until 28 February. And one of the things they need to get done before the 1st of March is make sure that the federal government continues to operate. So I have a sneaking suspicion that the FAA Reauthorization Act will be lower on the list. Oh, man.
Depends if they need to fly home or not.
Exactly.
Right.
All we have to say is, we'll get them a NOTAM scare. You thought that was bad.
Right.
How about sending all of the? I know we don't send air traffic control home. I know they're critical infrastructure. I know.
Yeah, but if it's not funded, those ATAC employees aren't paid, correct?
I think they are paid because they are considered critical.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I hope they continue to be paid, folks.
Yeah.
This is a critical employee.
This is a great summary. Thanks for. I had not seen this. Thank you for finding this. Fantastic document.
Yeah. All right. So, in case you needed a new set of FPV goggles,
for how much?
$3,500. The most expensive FPV goggles you may ever own.
But at least FPV pilots aren't the only dorky-looking people wearing goggles anymore.
Yes.
Good point.
I'll get the school to buy a pair for us to use.
So this article brought up a couple interesting points, and the neat thing is that some of the DJI models notoriously don't work with their goggles, and so this gives an opportunity for some of those that don't to actually be flown FPV. And the cool thing, and I'm not going to beat the article to death, but the interesting part is being able to view the footage, have basically an augmented reality space where you can still see what's going on around you, be able to have screens with different flight paths, your actual feed, sectional charts if you so choose, different plots of windows that you can have. I've not tried the Apple Visions. I don't know if anybody has, but I've seen videos, and being able to look at all that different levels of information is intriguing to me.
So would you still need a spotter if you have those in the mode where you can see a screen, but then the camera is showing you your
has to be your
sight?
unaided eye.
Unaided eye.
Right.
Vic Moss thinks that it would comply.
Well, it's not.
What's that?
Vic Moss is saying that he thinks that it would fall under that you wouldn't need a spotter.
It's not really aiding your vision any. It's making it slightly worse.
I thought he took the opposite position. He said okay. Yeah, I read his right.
His position was when I first saw it going around was that he thought that was okay, but I don't think so.
Yeah, this is I'd bet a cold one that the FAA would go, no, just as we just said, this is aided vision. So it's
the funny
because
thing
if you
is
put
that
the thing on and it's off, you can't see anything, so you have to turn it on to be able to see anything, which I would say is aided.
Yep.
The funny thing is that technically, if this was done really cool, where it could help zoom in and find the drone and spot it and show it and like give you all this extra information, it would be
Altitude,
better
position.
than not having a spotter. It would be better than not having goggles on, and yet it still would be, not
And it
you'd
could
be breaking the
plot air
rules.
traffic control and highlight different airplanes fly, or it could plot different
Kind of like the
aircraft flying around
DJI
you in the
goggles
sky.
almost do.
Yeah, I mean, it could be interesting. It'd be interesting to try, right? And I'm sure as the technology progresses, it could be very good. But $3,500 for a set of glorified FPV goggles seems a little steep to me.
So what I'd love to do, I'm hoping that someone who does a review on these measures the radiation that this thing gives off, because it's a lot of compute power, and it's like, oh, right into your brain. All right.
Local host comments in the lost local host in the YouTube chat that well, it shows your eyes on the outside, so that should be enough to fool the average FAA employee to thinking you don't have it's unaided vision. You can see.
Oh hell. Well, who's springing the $3,500? Let's test this out.
Not doing it.
Yep,
Not
not
doing it.
me. Nope. Besides, I heard they're extremely heavy, so there's that. There's people like strapping.
Well,
them
is
to
it heavy to
hats
people who
and-
aren't used to having goggles on their forehead, or
I mean,
Yeah.
my Fat Sharks are pretty light, so
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
light in comparison to the Gen 1 DJI monster.
yeah, that's true. Accurate. All right, so this is out of South Dakota, I think. Hold on.
Yeah, it's set up
South
there,
Dakota.
South Dakota.
Yeah,
So we
thank
got
you.
so we got
So-
what out there? More cows than people?
Yeah, well, I mean, so Senate Bill 169 aims to protect the public against the potential criminal usage of drones. The bill would make operating a drone in a careless manner a misdemeanor. So, for all you, exactly, that's my point. So, to all you crazy FPV freestyle or drone racers who are flicking around like crazy on a racetrack, what's a careless manner? Like, I'm curious about that. So, I was curious if they'd actually kind of define that in the bill. They didn't. So, there's that too. So,
Gotta
it
love
says,
regulations that are left up to the interpretation of the person enforcing it.
100%.
Yeah.
So, no person may intentionally or willfully operate a drone in a careless manner that endangers persons or property, or for voyeuristic or harassment purposes. I agree with the second part.
There's got to be rules against that already.
All right,
Yeah, they're
privacy
in
laws.
almost every state. In addition, what they use in New York is reckless endangerment, and so which can be either a misdemeanor or a felony. And as what was it? I think last summer, one individual thought it would be a good idea to argue with a state trooper. He got written up to a felony. So
Oh, Jesus.
yeah, and that's it was completely legit, and it was this is was law enforcement handling a guy who was being a bit of a jerk. So
Interesting.
as Greg Revendu would say, don't be that guy.
It's just so often we have to say just because of the cameras on a drone doesn't change anything. Like
Yep.
Right.
you could have a camera on a pole and do these same things, and it's already
Right.
against the rules. So
Yeah,
just
as
making it
Brendan
on a
Schulman-
drone doesn't make a
Flying
difference.
a
Brendan
There's no
Schulman would
camera on
say it's
there.
an iPhone in the sky.
Yep. All
Excellent.
right. So they also added no person may, except as authorized by law, land a drone on the real or personal property or the waters of a landowner who owns the real property beneath the water body without the landowner's consent. It is an affirmative defense if the landing was a forced landing or if the landing was caused by a technical malfunction. But in either case, the operator of the drone remains liable for any damage resulting from the landing.
So
person who-
somebody owned some lakefront property where a drone landed, and someone was not happy about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's also in New York State, one of the most legislated states in the country.
Mhm.
And if you have a waterway, you cannot have any of that legislation where you're excluding people from traversing on the water. So a river that's navigable, streams, no, that they can be owned, and property etc., but not navigable waterways. Sounds like it might be a little different in landlocked South Dakota.
Yep. So they did add as a good measure of legislation that no uh, the state or any political subdivision may not enact or enforce an ordinance regarding ownership, operation, design, manufacture, testing, maintenance, blah blah blah, of an uncrewed aircraft system, airspace, altitude, or flight path restrictions, qualifications, training, or certificate. So they're airing to the FAA on that stuff. Yeah, it's definitely some interesting language here. So
Yeah.
don't land things on other people's property, and don't fly recklessly, whatever that means. Rec- uh, let's see, careless manner. Okay. All right. So and then Dave, this might be a little more up your alley. This is the John Hagrain's views on the counter UAS ARC report.
Yeah, we've not had an opportunity, or I have not had an opportunity to dig through I think it's
It's only
190 pages.
it's only just under
I mean,
200 pages long. I
really,
mean, why haven't
really,
you read that yet?
what's my problem?
So
Um,
I'll cover it then.
Well, we do know that John was a member, as
Mhm.
was, I believe, Vic Moss, and as was the AMA. Our view on this is that we called the FAA multiple times, asking to be invited onto this ARC. We'd been on the Beyond Visual Line of Sight ARC. And it was one of the, it sounded so familiar to me. Oh, no, we're not taking exception. We're not taking applications yet. Oh, we're not taking, no, not yet, not yet. Oh, it's closed. So, we've decided everyone who's going to be on it. So we went to the FAA and they said, oh, well, what you can do is you can become a subject matter expert and you will have access to all of the material through the ARC. And so we did. We signed up and we spoke to the co-chair, who's an AUVSI exec, and the access that we got was zero. So we will review this document. There's I'm sure a brief comment period, and they're largely. I think the view is that, and I think that's what John Hagrain's reaction is, that it's not a lot of bad came out of it, because and I think the essence of that was, so you can find a drone in the sky. We've got the technology for that. And there is technology to mitigate or counter UAS or take a drone out of the sky, but it's matching those two and making it legal that's a little sticky. And so it sounds like this ARC did not get very far. And Josh, I'm not sure if I'm contradicting what you've read or your view on this.
Well, I mean, he goes through and talks about some of the policy recommendations, basically the recommendations that the ARC ended up making. So none of them are earth shattering, but for policy, incorporating an understanding of the industry and its ecosystem into policy recommendations. I think we've been touting that for a long time, just through education of people who are actually writing these policies, right? Consider detection and mitigation components separately for policy purposes. Advance the benefits of data management technology integration with its impact on the broader ecosystem. Balance data management and user safety and security with public privacy, environmental health, and civil liberties. 100%. I can agree with just about all of that. For risk management recommendations, they recommended create an acceptable level of risk and safety framework for UAS data management systems. Consider risk associated with certification, permission, authorization, or allowance, and establish operating rules for data management operators to minimize risk to the national airspace and traditional airspace operations. So, detection and mitigation, not data management. So let's see, we've got develop minimum performance standards for UAS detection and mitigation systems, evaluate and approve a set of detection and mitigation technologies for approved user selection, and develop detection-only system standards tailored to the airport environment. So, yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, there's
The whole-
There's some
in-
others
yeah.
down there like that should create a remote ID incentive program. So you give me a donut every
Huh.
time I put remote ID on my drone. You're gonna buy my modules for me. What are you gonna do? Or, as long as it's not a disincentive program and penalize you, but
Gonna shoot it out of the sky if you don't use remote ID.
Well, and here's one
The-
of the things that I think we've talked about is if you're using remote ID, like that should come with enhanced capabilities, right?
and I think
mean,
that's what you could use as an incentive is if you're using
Right.
remote ID, then you get to do this.
I can fly 400 foot over a structure, which only Part 107 could do before
Right.
then. Yeah, and yeah, my biggest beef with all this is, are we, am I sour grapes that we were not included in this? No, we got plenty to keep us out of mischief. I am annoyed that there's a lot of talk in the preamble, the chair's summary in this document that goes to great length about how they were very inclusive, that they sought every possible cohort and user, but of course they neglected
They didn't even
the
ask.
the largest cohort possible. They're concerned about the security of publicly recreationally used UAS, but they refuse to admit or talk to people who have access and insight into that space. So for that, not impressed. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex and /Rob, there's a remote ID compliance snapshot. Am I able to share that? Is that like protected information?
I think you can share it. But
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
I think
gonna.
we can share it.
Where did it come
I
from?
Let's
It was
see.
from a faculty meeting. I don't see why it wouldn't be shareable.
Yeah,
Okay,
because the thing's
cool.
recorded for us to be able to share to other people.
Well, it's shared now. So,
No going back.
so we've got total. This is as of the 16th of February. So we've got total UAS registered aircraft. We've got
But what? So hold on. So
793,000.
I'm going to need
Go
a
ahead,
lot
Dave.
more explanation of each one of these lines. If they say, like you said, 793,000 and the compliance level is 30.5%, that implies that they know how many total UAS aircraft there are out there that are not registered.
Or they're theorizing, right? I mean,
16 February 20. Yeah,
And they
this
clearly
is-
have no idea. Like if you built a 500 tiny whoops and are flying them in your backyard, that's not counted. They have no idea how
Yeah,
many of
this
those
is
are.
also amusing that this says that for the first time ever that 107 is such a large percentage of total recreational, and different from every document they
Well-
have produced, including the 2021 PEA programmatic
I'm not sure
environmental
you can actually
assessment.
get those numbers out of this. 107
I'm just
remote
looking
ID
at-
compliance is
Yeah.
23% of remote ID.
of 107
Think of the
operators, I
total
would
UAS
imagine.
registered.
Right. So I would say that you're looking at of all the 107 pilots that have registered. Where's
I like that they've associated 100,000 for the FRIA factor. This is like the Chewbacca defense. I love it.
So we've got RID modules out in the wild. We're thinking close to 11,000.
So they can certainly tell us how many people have a registered drone and registered a module and put stuff into their system.
Yep.
Mhm.
But like when it says recreational flyer remote ID compliance, total broadcasting, 58,000. How do they what if I put this module and I fly it around for testing and I forgot to register it?
Right. They never know.
They have
Well,
no
this is the
idea.
data that they have access to, right?
And
So-
you can buy a DJI drone and fly it around and it might be broadcasting, but you didn't register it.
Right.
There's going to be tons of those. So unless they're actively like listening to all the air traffic or wireless signals all across the country, they've got no idea how many are actually broadcasting remote ID.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. So to me, the takeaway from this is the FAA is concerned that remote ID is not does not have a huge uptake, and this could be a great segue to the work that we're doing in the Drone Advisory Committee on standard remote ID. Josh, can okay if I
Please.
say a couple words there? So
Absolutely.
we've met as a group, and we are the first effort that we will have is arguing against the size and radius of sports stadia TFRs. And Rob knows more about this than any of us, but that's something that we're, as a group, will be going in and asking the FAA and then likely Congress to take some action to make it a smaller radius around stadia. The second tasking that we're taking on has to do with standard remote ID. And so, as most folks listening to us understand, that if you're producing, so you're a manufacturer, a drone, and it's for sale, and it was effectively a ready to fly, that is when the customer receives it, it can go up into the air, that has to have standard remote ID. That's a big deal. It's expensive. You have to get a declaration of compliance for each model that you ship, not just the standard remote ID system. And so we're talking to manufacturers, users, service providers, trying to get an understanding of what are the current plans, and we'll likely be asking the FAA and Congress for some source for some delay in putting standard remote ID into effective date. I mean, it's already out there, and the effective dates have passed, obviously, but we're looking for some breathing room and changes to the rules, because these are broadly meeting with non-compliance, and it's damaging small businesses at the benefit of larger businesses, and that's hopefully a topic that the Congress will take seriously. So, and that's FPVFC is a founding member of that organization, and John Hagrains of Aloft is another founding member. And this standard remote ID project is co-chaired with Pilot Institute. So we're privileged to be part of this group, and great bunch of individuals. We'll see what we'll keep this group posted, and as we create documents, we'll happy to share them during a markup review. So we're welcome comments. There have been some great comments that I've pulled out of our own Discord. So very helpful.
And if people are wondering, John Hagrains, where have I heard that name before? We just mentioned that because we were sharing that document where he summarized what the Beyond Visual Line of Sight, or no, not Beyond, the Detect and Avoid, the
ARC. Right. The Detection and Mitigation Aviation Rulemaking Committee. John Hagrains, the CEO of Aloft, who brings you air aware as well as air control. So if you're recreational, definitely an app you want on your smart device so that you can determine, is there a TFR? What's the NOTAM? Am I in controlled or uncontrolled airspace? If you need Lance approval, then that app, the Air Aware, will feed Air Control and submit a Lance application.
So there's a question in YouTube from Focus. I think they're asking if ready to fly is defined explicitly, and is there any room for variance on that?
Yeah, no is the simple answer. Great question, and I smile because, boy, we've had a lot of discussions on this. So the FAA, the closest they come to it now is home built, and then within the preamble of the remote ID documentation, the final rule, there's some level of detail on this. And so happily, in the initial NPRM, the FAA was talking about a percentage of built versus not built. Happily, they went away from that. And so they just characterize it as home built versus what's built by a producer. And then there are some vague references to if it's an incomplete, and we've followed up with the FAA on this. If it's an incomplete assembly, then it's not considered a ready-to-fly manufactured or produced small UAS. Great question.
And some companies who sell aircraft or drones are pushing that definition farther one way than others. Some manufacturers may say, if you buy this, but you have to buy the battery separate, this is not ready to fly. This is almost ready to fly, and you're assembling it at home. Other people might say that's a little bit too much.
What Dan is referencing is Horizon Hobby, who have subsequently come out with their own remote ID broadcast module. So yeah, we looked at that one and go, I don't think so. If I could add just one more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our thanks to Joshua Bardwell and Blunty for a review on MRID, our colleagues from Phoenix UAS. And so this is the group that released a very, very small MRID module. It's a broadcast, RID broadcast module, and it's tiny and it's light, and it uses and plugs in your own or a GPS module that you purchase. And Joshua does a fantastic job of describing the benefits of having a separate GPS module. And so great that there's another solution for remote ID. And all of us in FPVFC are extraordinarily proud that these two guys put this product together. It was not easy, and it looks to be fantastic. So thanks to Joshua and Blunty, and congratulations for a great video to Brian and Ken.
Yeah, I hope after the video that the modules are selling well for the people who decide they need them, and that they're getting some return on their investment for creating them.
They've already got a signed up by one of the hobby retailers, so that's great to hear.
And
That's
CB
perfect.
Runner left a comment in YouTube with just a smiley face. He's one of those two guys.
CBR Runner.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there's an extra R there. CBR Runner.
It's a Honda.
All right. So I think we'll go around the room. Rob, what do you got? Anything for us tonight?
Nothing big. Just a whole lot of work on this pending legislation that Dave mentioned. I'll keep everybody posted as we know more. So.
All right, Alex, what you got? Anything?
I don't have anything this week.
All right.
Nothing else interesting from the FAST team meeting that you can share?
Not that I remember.
So it must not have been that important.
Sounds good.
That's awesome. Love it. All right, Dan.
One more.
One
last comment. On our Facebook page, I referenced a great news article by Greg Revendu of Pilot Institute, where he asked for our help on HR 2864. I believe I shared this up on FPVFC Facebook as well. So if you haven't already, please comment professionally, politely, productively, not profanely, on about HR 2864. This is important because the New York congressional representative, Elise Stefanik, is the number 3 Republican in the House. She has enormous authority. So we could say, well, this will never pass. Let's be careful, because this is a very high-ranking congressional member that is putting this forward. So if you please just if you go to the Pilot Institute site, Greg has this linked that he's got it. So you have to click through. It brings you to, it finds your congressional representative, and you can either click and not add any comments, or add comments if you like. And again, please, as Greg would say, don't be that guy. Please do make them professional, productive, and responsible. And I think that's all I had. And Dan, I think I might have stepped on
That's
you. My
fine.
apologies.
So I have that up here on the screen. It's a simple one pager. So just we'll go over it real quick. To amend the Secure and Trusted Communication Networks Act of 2019 to provide for the addition of certain equipment and services produced or provided by DJI Technologies to the list of covered communications equipment or services published under some act.
Right. This is the one where they're banning our use of the radio frequency band. So this goes after the FCC regs,
Mhm.
not FAA. So this would knock out the entire industry.
Yeah.
So would this mean you couldn't use a DJI air unit or anything like that?
Mhm.
Anything that produces RF that's sold out of a covered nation,
Yep.
which is, let's see, that would be 99.9% of what we fly.
Absolutely. All right, Dan, anything to round us out?
I
for
don't
the
have
evening?
anything of my own, but Focus has another question in the YouTube chat asking, what are thoughts around being able to move a remote ID module for Part 107 pilots? It would seem the intent would be to know who was in the air. Why a unique license plate if registered already with the FAA?
Good question. I can take it. Anyone else? So they don't want you to move. Well, pardon me. You're welcome to do it,
Cost you $5 a time.
but yeah, it's $5 a crack each time. So you have to unregister the broadcast module from one aircraft and then re-register it on another aircraft. So you'd have to do that each time. And the difference, of course, is that the matching has to do with registration. In recreational, we're registering ourselves. Part 107, we're registering the aircraft.
Mhm.
And Rob, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. They wanted to mirror the current registration process.
Yep.
And I would guess
Which
if they
is
could,
tricky.
they would make it so that the recreational people had to register every single one as well. But somehow
that's a
we
great-
escaped
That's
that.
a great point. So we were going to, I was going to mention that. Thanks for bringing that up, Dan. If you fly recreationally and you're flying with a rig that's under 250 grams, all up weight, do not register it. You're encouraged to register it when you're on the drone zone. Don't, because if you do, that drone then becomes registered and it's required to have remote ID on it.
Mhm.
Everything
So-
that's registered needs remote ID.
Right.
One of the things that the FAA could do with this is just give you the ability to register the module as a piece of equipment that could then just be moved between, right? And that would be
Yeah, I
a thoughtful
don't quite
approach.
understand why the FAA needs to know every model of aircraft you have and every module that's tied to each aircraft. And like,
Yeah,
if something bad happens, they know it's yours. Like that's
right.
what they really need to know. But I'm sure they've got some other reason for it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's the FAA. Their
It's
inner
so-
workings are a mystery to all.
It's so they can come up with those charts and graphs to share that says so many have standard remote ID and so many have this module and so many have that module.
Fancy charts. All right, guys. I think that'll wrap us up for this evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of you guys for being here tonight. And super appreciate the questions, the feedback, and keep that coming. And we'll see you again in another couple of weeks. Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you, Josh.
Fly so high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Flying, get on board. Dangerous times, don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind. Flying, get on board. We're soaring on top of the world. Flying, get on board. We're soaring on top of the world. Fly so high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Flying, get on board. We're soaring on top of the world. Dangerous times, don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.